Most leadership training will teach you to speak confident, with clarity, casting a vision, and communicating goals. And sure, that's important. But there is one word that we don't spend enough time on to enhance our communication skills. One word that will separate us from being good leaders to unforgettable ones. Let me ask you, have you ever worked for someone that just talks a lot, but yet they never just seem to understand you? And that's because they're lacking this one important word in leadership communication skills. And that one word is listen. The ability to listen effectively. This is a game changer. The ability to listen effectively. It's not flashy. This word is not trendy, but yet it is powerful in its effectiveness. Because true leadership doesn't start with speaking, it starts with the ability to listen or listening. Listening builds trust and it builds clarity, and listening turns employees into team members and team members into believers. How many of us want that in our organization? So I want to talk to you about a couple of different forms of listening today that I think is going to be so powerful because we are not trained to think about listening. We're trained to think about our leadership presence and the ability to speak with confidence and fill up the room with our leadership presence by how we speak. However, what if the key was that we had the supernatural ability to listen and that increased our effectiveness? So let's talk about a couple of forms of listening. Number one, the first form that I would say is passive listening. And passive listening is one that I really would almost define as just hearing somebody, because when we passively listen, we listen with distractions. How many times have you had distractions while you're trying to listen to somebody? I have had that myself. I wear a smartwatch, I have a cell phone, and I have continuous emails that are coming throughout the day. Sometimes continuous phone calls. So when that happens, my phone is vibrating and my wrist is vibrating, and I know that there are things going on. I've also made mistakes of taking my cell phone and scrolling while someone is talking to me, and that would be an example of having passive listening or just hearing somebody, because really, are we engaged and did we get the whole message that someone's trying to give us? When we passively listen, it really gives the message to those that are talking to us that we really just don't truly care. However, the other form, and you probably have guessed it, is to actively listen to the people that are talking to us. And there are a few things that we can do when we're actively listening. And this would be like, tell me more. Or what's your biggest concern right now? I hear you saying, and then we can validate it. Did I get that right? And so when we're validating what someone's saying or repeating it back, that shows that we are actively engaged in our listening to someone speaking to us. And what actively listening looks like is direct eye contact, looking directly at them, not distracted by our devices, pausing sometimes before we even respond, or even asking thoughtful follow-up questions to show that we are engaged in the conversation. That is crucial, and that is definitely very, very important in the conversations that we're having. So when people feel heard, they feel this, and I want to write this down because I think it's important. When they feel heard, they feel safe in the organization. When they feel heard, they feel safe. And when they feel safe, look at this, they show up fully in their job roles. They're fully engaged. Because if we want engagement, guess what we have to do? Listen. You got it right. If we want loyalty, we have to listen. If we want growth, what else do we have to do? You got it right. We have to listen. It's so important. So here are a few tools that we can start doing today to help create a fully engaged workforce in our organizations. Number one, ask more questions. Ask more questions. That's important because, again, we are actually showing that we are engaged in the conversation. Number two, pause before we respond. Now, don't pause too long because they'll think you're asleep. We need to pause 3 seconds or less, but just pause before we respond because we are articulating what we have listened to, the information, to give a response. We don't want to listen to actively respond because when we do that, sometimes we interrupt those that are talking to us, and it feels like to the person speaking that we haven't been listening to the entire conversation. And when we're thinking about our response instead of listening, then we actually miss part of the conversation. So it's important for us to pause to ensure that we have processed the information and now we're responding back. So let's not interrupt the people that are speaking to us. And then I would say number three is to make sure that we validate the information being given to us. So this is different than asking more questions. This is actually validating what I heard you say is this. Is that right? That's not asking more probing questions. That's actually validating the information that we've been given. So here's the risk when we don't listen. People stop talking in our organizations. They stop giving feedback. They stop being creative. They stop caring. And that's what hurts the culture in our organizations, which then leads to you and I being burned out in leadership because we are just not being influential in our organizations. So when we lose influence, not only from a lack of authority, but we can lose influence from simply a lack of connection, and connection comes from listening. So we don't want to lose a lack of connection. We need to be connected to those that are where you're serving. So leadership communication skills don't start with talking right away. They start with actively listening. So here's our challenge. In our next conversation, whether it's a team member, a patient, or a family, listen like it's your superpower because it is. As we serve together, Dr. Jeff.